Maybe you're feeling it, a quiet, persistent pull, a knowing that your work is meant to be something more. You've chased success, you follow the rules, but deep down, you crave something that feels real, fulfilling, and uniquely yours. Are you curious how others have become their most aligned self? It's time for you to create a career that connects with your soul. This is your Soulful Career Calling. Will you answer? Welcome to your Soulful Career Calling, the podcast where we get real around career conversations to help you align with your calling and discover the work you were born to do. I'm your host, Kasi, and I'm so excited you're here. For over 2 decades, Candis Melamed has been transforming physicians, celebrity doctors, and skincare brands into industry authorities through authentic connection. As the founder of the Spotlight Agency and the company's director of public relations, she helps clients enhance and build their reputation and gain brand credibility. Beyond traditional PR, her Spotlight Method platform now empowers professionals to find their voice and build their presence with confidence. With her engaging, down-to-earth approach, Candis doesn't just elevate brands. She creates partnerships that help clients connect, lead, and thrive in alignment with their unique purpose. So please welcome my friend, Candis Melamed, to the podcast today. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Kathy.
Yeah. Well, as you know, on one of my goals on my podcast is to really give listeners an honest look into what different careers really look like, kind of a, an underbelly, behind the iron curtain. So can you share with me a description of your job? And because I want people to go beyond just titles, can you describe it in a manner that even a 10-year-old could understand?
Absolutely, because I also have a 10-year-old and have had to explain what mommy does. So I can absolutely do that. And first, let me say I love that you are creating this space to expand and highlight all these different types of careers. We never really had anything like this when I was growing up. And I know that it would have been really helpful to see all the different things people do and how they've become successful at them. So kudos to you.
Thank you.
So, what I do in the simplest form is help people find their voice in what they speak about, whether it's their expertise or something they're passionate about. And I help them gain visibility. I help make them visible or show them how to be visible and use their voice to educate people or to elicit change.
So well said, so articulate. And I think that so many of us, we go into business and we don't realize that we're going to need that voice. We're going to need that perspective, right? In partnering with somebody in PR gives people that partnership to be able to do that. And so I think that as different people, I think there's lots of careers people can go into that are going to need a public relations agency to come behind them and support making them more visible and being able to build their brand. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah.
And it can look a number of different ways. As a publicist or as a PR agency, we take a client, a person, right, with that voice, and we position them and put them on TV or online in different news outlets or in magazines and have them tell their story or elements of their story. Or, as I said, if it was a doctor, they're educating. As more of a consultant, I'm helping people find that voice. So I'm becoming more of a guide to help them find what that voice is, identify how they can communicate effectively to people. And absolutely, that's something that is beneficial in starting a business and being an effective leader, in guiding your team, then also to the way you speak to the outside world.
Such incredible ways to partner with somebody that might have an idea, but they don't know how to bring it to the forefront. So your role is super critical. I also like to share with clients and remind people that our careers are never linear, right? We go ups and downs and we hit, roadblocks, which become, breakthroughs. But I want to see if you could share a little more around your particular career path and how it brought you to where you are now.
Well, when I started out, when I look back now, I think must have been crazy because I started my agency. I definitely had internships in college and, wanted to get an idea of what PR was and what a publicist did. But then I started my agency with no clients, which is unheard of. Very bootstrapped efforts. Most people work in a company, they'll work in an agency, gain close relationships with a client, and then kind of take a client with them to start their company. So they're starting on some income. I, for whatever reason, just decided I'm going to do this. I think I would love some flexibility later in life when I'm a mom and want to have my own business. I don't know why I felt the need to start it so young and with no clients, but I did. And gradually worked for the last 18 to 20 years building that business and growing and developing clients. And now I am finding a different passion that where my strength really lies is in strategy and in supporting and helping people and find their voice and people help them so that they can then help more people, right? So they can go out and do more. And the other thing I'm finding myself passionate about is women's voices. So, through helping people be visible and the importance of using our voice for good and for change, I'm also finding how passionate I am about women's voices. And so, part of my journey is now moving into exploring what that looks like and how I can help more women find and tap into their voice.
I love it. And you bring up two things that really stand out to me. One is you talked about the importance of being in the journey, because this is a journey, right? That yet, as you're even stepping into a new space, not necessarily new, but kind of adding on to what you
Right,
do,
evolving.
it's been in the action of doing. And that's the second point that I find so critical is that people have to realize, you went and you jumped right in. And that's so admirable. So many times we kind of stand back and we wait for all the pieces to come together. And I think we have to remind our listeners, especially young listeners, or
Mhm.
anybody that's like, holding themselves back, that it's really in the action of doing intentional action that you
Mhm.
start to discover what that is and what it is that you don't want to do. Um,
Mhm.
so I think that's
Absolutely.
important. You've been called, which I love this, the Mick Jagger of health PR. I'm like, wow, that is saucy. I love it. Was there a specific moment when you realized that your unique approach to PR was really making a difference in the industry?
I have Howard Bragman to thank for that. He dubbed me, he was like the godfather of PR. He started Bragman, Nyman, Caffarelli, which it still is a massive PR agency. And he wrote in an email and introduced me as the Mick Jagger of health PR. And I was so taken aback and humbled by that. He was a great man who's no longer with us, and I miss him dearly. But the highest compliment for me is when clients succeed. And oftentimes, more often than not, publicists are behind the scenes. They are not, they're not at the forefront. It's not their name or um, their hand waving the flag. No one knows what we do. No one really sees us there creating these story opportunities or putting these doctors or professionals in the limelight. So we have a very behind the curtain role, and it's very quiet and oftentimes can be very unappreciated because we're not the ones being celebrated, right? We're always trying to shine the spotlight on somebody else. And so years and years ago, I began working with a great fertility specialist by the name of Shaheen Gadir. And it wasn't that he was recently newly practicing. He had been practicing for a while, but he had just become a partner in a much larger fertility clinic. And so we worked together for a few years, and I saw that in a span of 3 very short years, his career accelerated tenfold. So he had the visibility and the growth of a physician practicing for probably 15 to 20 years in a very short span because of the notable PR placements that we were able to get him across television, national television, local television, intranet, magazine, newspapers. He was just about everywhere. And I looked at that just career leap because of, a great amount of it was because he had invested in PR. And I realized I was doing things a little differently when I started hearing feedback from producers of like The Doctors, which was a national daytime TV show. When I would hear feedback from them on how my approach was different and how I presented opportunities and stories differently than others, or highlighted things that others don't, or I went out of my way to support producers, even if a doctor wasn't my client and they just needed somebody, they knew they could call me. So that is when I started to really understand that what I do is has impact and is different than what others are providing.
I love it, and you highlight the importance of being a supportive role, whether that's somebody that you are personally working on and developing or not, and knowing you personally, I know that's who you are, and so absolutely can see where that's a way that you distinguish yourself probably from other people out there that are maybe just, focused on getting their client and their program, put out there. But when you're aware of everybody around you and inclusive and meeting their needs as well, I think it really is part of standing out. So that's no doubt to me that you do
Thank you. Thank you,
that.
Kathy. It's also for our listeners, it's also a part of PR, right? Your public persona is exactly who you will inevitably do exactly who you innately are. If
Hmm.
you you thank you so much for being so with your kind words. You said that that's who you know who I am, and that's true. I cared about relationships, and they weren't just about the ones that were clients who paid me and were part of the company, but also the media relationships I cared about just as much. To be valued as a resource and to be seen as a partner, as somebody who is going to help them no matter what, is really invaluable because you never know who talks to who, and you never know when they're meeting with somebody else who needs a publicist or who could benefit from my services. And then I'm the one they think of, right? And so, how we show up in the world, how we show up when we walk into an elevator or when we walk into the lobby of a building we're going to interview in is just as important as how we show up when we know the camera is on and when the spotlight is on us.
Absolutely. And I think it's so critical that especially young listeners understand that. Show up with all of you, be present, and really understanding the importance of networking. Be curious, find ways you can connect to people. Everybody around you has a story. And so often, I mean, I believe that, I believe in the good in people that they want to help other people. So if you're really genuinely invested in asking them questions and wanting to network, people want to connect with you. And that's an important element is that relationships and how you kind of build out your network. So was there a mentor or a person in your life who fundamentally like shifted your understanding of like, oh, this is what's possible in this field of PR? And how did they make that impact?
I am such a big believer in mentors. Like, I believe in having mentors if you're lucky enough to find one. And I really believe in being a mentor and giving back. And I believe in mentorship, which is why I continue to have an internship program in our agency. And I want to give students an opportunity to learn and get hands-on experience. And then really it's up to students to develop that relationship and to seek a mentor out and to ask somebody to be a mentor. So, one of my college professors who has just become a dear friend, and I absolutely look at her as a mentor, Dr. Lori Baker Shenna. I adore her with all my heart. She was an incredible professor. She is an incredible woman. She's one of the most positive women I know, and she not only taught me about the possibilities within PR. She was an active publicist at the time she was teaching. So, ironically enough, she was also in the medical PR space working with hospitals, and she did more of the writing side of things. I did not go down that path, but she was always accessible and always guided me on personal, like how important my personal brand is. She talked to me, she helped me guide me through like my first job interview and negotiating, my that first job was the cutest thing ever. But more than that, she taught me about women as professionals.
Mm.
And she was one of the first women outside of my mother, outside of my family, where I heard her say that as women, we must support each other, that there are enough people out there trying to work against us, that we don't need to do that among one another. There are plenty of opportunities and there's plenty to go around, that is not how we should be. And so creating that women supporting women foundation in my life, again, outside of family, which I really needed to see because school had taught me different. My younger years in middle and high school when girls can kind of be mean was a different reflection. So the first time I ever heard her say that in a classroom, it like sat deep within me. And so it wasn't just about the world of PR that she taught me about. It was the ethos with which to live and work in this professional space. And then Jen Burnson is another amazing mentor and coach, business coach that I met along the way, because it's not always about just when you're young. I believe that we need mentors and we need coaches as we grow, as we evolve, as we change. And maybe what we were doing when we first started isn't necessarily aligned with who we are now or how the industry has grown. So her Generation Academy has been phenomenal in helping to guide me. She talks a lot to new entrepreneurs, new publicists who are just going out on their own. But even for somebody who had been practicing for 10 years, for 10 plus years, when I started working with her, I thought she was equally informative and phenomenal and had great guidance for me. And then in my life, Liz Spottick and the Warrior Women, her Warrior Women coaching has been incredible too, and that has impacted my career. And even though it wasn't a direct business coach or career coach, the fact that I have been able to work and grow as an individual has helped me bring to light for me where are the areas that I'm really most passionate about, thinking about legacy and okay, I've been doing PR for 20 years. Where am I going now? What do I want to be doing? And being able to have a incredible safe space to explore that and have somebody help guide that has really impacted where I've taken my career and where I am taking it now. So going into consulting and being able to expand to help more people and help them in different ways, or moving towards women's voices is something I've discovered through the coaching with her.
You highlight the role of mentorship so well. It's so critical. You talk about it throughout periods of your life, how that impacted you. And you're right. It's so much of it is having the right mindset in who we kind of surround ourselves with
Oh
and
yeah.
those types of influences. The trajectory they can put us in our life is huge, personally and professionally. And you're right. As young girls, we often feel like sometimes we have to dim that light, and make everybody else's so everybody else's can shine brighter.
Hmm.
And I think it's so critical as young women that they know that when you come together, shining your light only makes everybody else's brighter. We can all come together. It's not as if one needs to be snuffed out so somebody can shine. And it sounds like you really had
100%.
somebody, you know, I know your mom was an impactful in that way growing up, but it's beautiful to see that throughout different stages of your life and your career, you've had women come in and say, let me shine that spotlight, pun intended,
Right.
on, at who you are. and what
Right.
you can do. So,
Right. And they've modeled also lifting other women up. So even they did it for me, but then I also saw them modeling it for other women and then showing me how to do it. So that, it's one thing to hear it, and I think it's one thing to see others do it, because
yeah.
then you almost get a sense of permission to do it too, and you see it modeled for you. And I think that's really impactful. And having it throughout your life, to be able to look at times and not say, oh, well, I've been practicing for 10 years, I know everything there is to know.
Yeah.
And to be humble about it and say, maybe I don't know everything there is, and let me see what other people are doing. Maybe they're doing it differently or better, or I could pivot in some different ways. And I did inevitably do that. So that has been those three mentors for me, coaches and mentors, have been lifelines. I'm still in touch with all of them. I still talk to all of them. Lori is like, she's such a part of my heart. I just talked to her because I just want to check in and see how she's doing at this point. But we do still talk about business and work and where my career, she talks about the second career, where that's going. So these are all exciting conversations. But for our younger listeners who are listening, I will say that the onus falls on them to reach out and to ask somebody to mentor them if they'd be willing they have to be the one that stays in touch. They have to be the one that reaches out, who updates their mentor, who asks for guidance. It is not on the mentor's job or responsibility to do that. So I think that's also really important, is just because you found somebody, you've got to maintain that relationship and keep it going, which can be hard throughout the years because life gets busy.
Yeah, that intentionality is so key, and it's really kind of a soft skill that I think so many employers are looking for, that it's not necessarily even taught in college, but having the ability to reach out, to be proactive, take initiative within your network, it is a critical skill. So I'm glad that you pointed that out. I like to really help people connect to what things that they loved in their childhood, they connected to in their childhood, might be showing up today. Because I feel like when we're children, like, we're so free, we play in the world of possibility, and then somehow we grow up and we put these, parameters around ourselves. So I would love to hear if, there's anything that you loved as a child that you see showing up now in your work.
I have to say, as a child, I definitely had creativity was a big part of my life. I love to be creative and to draw and to bake and to just think creatively. And so while it wasn't specific, and I also really loved connecting with people. One of my favorite favorite stories, like career related stories, is high school, when I think you're like a junior, and you have this like college counselor in high school, and they sit you down and they're like, what what do you want to be when you grow up? Like, you've got to get ready for college, right? So you're applying, and they're trying to think about majors, and so it's all this. And literally, this counselor, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and this counselor was like, do you like history? She went through all the subjects. Do you like history? I was like, no. But do you like science? I was like, no. Do you like math? No. I mean, literally, I said no to every
Yeah.
subject. I mean, except for English. And she was like, well, what about English? And I was like, it's okay. I like it. I can do it. I can write. And I said no to everything. I shot her down on like every subject. At the end, she was like, what do you like?
Yeah.
So what do you like? And I was like, I really like connecting with people, really
Mm.
like talking to people. And even though the path she was going to send me on was not for me, she was like, go take a sociology and a psychology class. But that wasn't for me. What I ended up doing in my life was exactly that. At that time, and this is why I said in the beginning, like, we didn't have this when I was a kid. We didn't have all the things that you could be and all the different ways that you could creatively make money but also following your passion. And it seems so limited what was available. At that time, I felt like I only knew what I didn't want. I only knew I didn't want to be in a cubicle. I didn't want to do a monotonous job day in and day out. I didn't want to show up and do the same thing every day. And that's all I knew. So I kind of knew what I didn't want, but like think of all the possibilities that lie when when you don't really know what else. There's a lot of jobs that aren't monotonous that do different things
Yeah.
every day, right? I just didn't know what they were, and I didn't have anyone to open those doors for me. So I really value what you're doing here. So for me as a child, it was creativity. I was thinking creatively and creating unique things and also connecting with people. I love to talk to people all the time, and I felt like people were drawn to talk to me and to sometimes share things that were really intimate because they felt like they could just have a safe space to do it without judgment with somebody who was empathetic. And like I said, even though psychology or sociology wasn't the path for me, PR really allows me to do that. And even more so now with consulting, it allows me to do that, to really listen to people, listen to what it is that they're trying to achieve, what it is that they want to do, and then helping to just formulate in their own words, bring their own vision and their own words to life and help them achieve that.
That's so great because people have to remember that part of the process is figuring out what you also don't like. And it's what's incredible is that at a young age, not only were you able to articulate very well what it is that you thought you were good at and what you enjoyed, and that was connecting with people. But being able to also identify what you don't like is a huge piece of the puzzle. And we need to give ourselves and our kids the freedom to do that and not just point them down some pathway that feels very restrictive. We want them to be able to say, well, this is what I feel, this is where I feel happiest and what I
Mhm.
feel good at. And this space doesn't necessarily feel good. It's not, where I'm at my best. So I think it's incredible that you were able to articulate that and understand that about yourself at a young age, even without some of the resources that we have now.
Yeah. And even now, when I talk to our interns who intern for our agency, or when I'm talking to other like high school and college kids, I will say the same thing. I really emphasize internships as a great way to see both what you like and what you don't like.
Yep.
And it's not always subject matter related.
Yes.
We're a boutique agency. And so I always tell the interns, I said, even if you come through this internship and you realize at the end of it, okay, I liked PR, but I didn't love that small agency experience. I think I would really love a big corporate experience more. Or was in the big corporate experience, but felt like I was lost. So it's also environment and the types
Yeah.
of people. I had an employee once who came from fashion PR. She
Mhm.
came from the fashion PR industry. And I remember vividly during the interview, I said, why you come from fashion? Why is it that you want to do health and beauty? And she said, in the fashion industry, women tend to be more cutthroat and mean. And that is not what I want. I do not want to be surrounded by in that mean, negative environment. I really believe that women should support each other and help each other. And well, obviously, that was very aligned with me. But I thought it was really interesting that she had had that experience. And it was a job, it wasn't an internship. But she had had that experience and she came away from it saying, maybe I love fashion PR, I just don't love the personalities that are associated with that industry. So unless that changes, it's not for me. And I think those things are equally as important as, you talk about the messy action. It's just the action of doing, right? Of just getting it done. When you're in that environment, that's why I'm such an advocate for internships, is when you get in that environment, you can see all sorts of stuff.
Yep.
You get to see different roles, personalities, boutique agencies or boutique small companies versus big companies, startups versus established companies, how they all work and they do different. And then that's how you sort of get to see what you liked more, what sort of aligns with you. And that may change as you get older, but for that time in your life, this is what aligns with you now. So now you know how to set yourself up for success in the best possible way.
You're absolutely right. The exposure piece is critical. And even when I'm going through, the college process with my daughter right now. We're talking about we need to look at small schools, at big schools, in small cities, big cities,
Mhm.
ones that are close to home, far away from home. The more you expose ourselves to different environments, then you can pick the pieces. You're like, this fits for me. This doesn't fit for me. So
Exactly.
that's super important. You have a gift truly, and I know that you know this about yourself for really helping people find their voice. And so I'm wondering, was there any pivotal moments growing up where you realized the importance of helping others be seen and heard authentically?
I I actually think it's interesting. It's not so much about others. I think it was a pivotal moment when I realized my voice
Mm,
really made a difference and mattered. I was a kid. This is a really funny story. So I was a kid, and the type of home that my father grew up in was very. He grew up with a lot of kids in the house, and so there was a lot of rule. It was a lot of discipline, and so his mother just spoke with authority, right? And it wasn't necessarily pleases and thank yous, even though I grew up with that. My dad studied in England, and it was very much yes, please, or no, thank you, type of household. But when his mom spoke, it was, let me see that. Like, and when she wanted to say, give me something, she would say, let me see that.
mm,
Right. And so I think inadvertently, my dad adopted that dialogue.
yeah.
And it would always I started to notice as a young teen that it would happen at the dinner table as soon as we sat down, and he would as inevitably, as soon as everybody sat down, he would say, like, to my mom, like, "Let me see the salt shaker," right? Like, so the salt and pepper wouldn't be at the table, and so then she'd have to get up. And, I started to notice this pattern, and I also had noticed that it wasn't something that was coming from him. He had adopted it from my grandmother because I noticed it in him, and then when we went to her house, I heard her say it too, and I was like, "This is where it's coming from." And so one day I got fed up with it, that every time we sit down, my mom would have to so the second she'd sit down to enjoy her meal, she'd have to get up.
Yeah.
So the next time he asked, I got up, I opened the cabinet, I held out the salt shaker, and I said, "Do you see it?" And then I put it back, I closed the cabinet, and I came and sat down. And that was such a pivotal moment for me and kudos to my dad for he could have done a lot of different things in that moment, and I know a lot of parents would be like, there was the respect factor of how dare you, and they could have come down really hard. He could have come down really hard on me, and instead he didn't. He really respected my voice and the way I reflected back to him how it was coming across, knowing full well that he is not ill-intentioned and has no, mean bone in his body, but of how his voice, how what he was saying was coming across, and also just how you can change how you say that, right? Would you mind getting me the salt shaker? I'm so sorry to ask, like, right as soon as you sat down, right? It was such a different way he could have used his voice, but the fact that I used my voice to speak up in a non-aggressive, non-threatening way not only showed me how important our voice is, for me, that was also advocating for my mom a little bit, right, in that moment, because I was really frustrated for her. But now, as I look to the next, how my career is evolving, I really realize that I think even at that age, subconsciously, the importance of women's voices was so important to me. And so now as I'm moving into, the next phase of my career, my passion for helping women raise their voice, find their voice, and use their voice is is something I've always been passionate about. It's just kind of coming to light now. And there are still women around the world who don't have that freedom and luxury.
Absolutely. And that is going to be a gift that you give to so many.
Oh, thank you.
That story is so sweet, and I love the graciousness that was met in that moment, right?
That's
That it could
yes.
have been received differently, but that type of connection that you had with your father, I think speaks a lot to the fact that you did feel, number 1, that you could be confident in speaking up, but you were also confident knowing that it would be received well and that that was a safe space.
Yes, and he, good on him for allowing in that moment, allowing me to use my voice and encouraging it. He really encouraged it, and he showed me what a difference it makes when you speak up, what a difference it makes, how powerful it can be, and how it can elicit change.
Yeah.
Because he never did it again after that.
Yeah. That was impactful.
That was impactful, yeah.
The voices around us, and I think, the voices in our head and the stories we tell ourselves really can make such an impact. So, as parting thoughts, I've just loved for you to give, some advice to your younger self. What would you say to your younger self, that voice that maybe you needed to hear when you were younger that
Yeah.
would have, propelled you to get to where you are today? What would that sound like?
Um, Sean, we touched on it a little bit kind of throughout our conversation. A little bit is it's okay if you don't know what you want to do, because I certainly didn't. I'm still okay now, right? I still figured it out. So knowing if you don't know what you want to do, that's okay.
Yep.
Might seem a little scary, but there are so many people out there willing to share their journeys and so many people willing to hold your hand if you just reach out and ask for it. That is one thing. And the other thing is just that messy start. Just take the step. Just take the step and be really curious. I think for me, I know that when I'm on the right path, when I'm interested in something, my barometer is the number of questions I ask. So when I start asking somebody a lot of questions, that is usually my internal guide of like, oh, this is something I'm interested in. So this is an answer a lot of people might give is to be curious, but what really know yourself to know what that looks like inside of you. So for me, it's asking questions,
Yeah.
but also what lights you up. Like notice, be introspective into when you feel excited about something. As an intern, the first time I had secured a placement for a client and I saw it in a magazine, I literally wanted to get up and do a happy dance. And I will tell you, 15 years later, I still wanted to get up out of my seat and do a happy dance when got that for a client. I was so happy. So when you feel lit up, when you feel really excited that you want to do a little happy dance for yourself around this, like follow that.
Yeah.
Follow that and ask yourself, what about that is exciting me? Is it the creativity? Is it that end result? Was it the journey? Because a lot of those things are transferable into other areas,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Was it the people I worked with? Well, where else can I find those types of people? And so you just keep asking questions and follow that path, and it will lead to the right people. And also have some faith and just trust that your journey is divine and that
Mhm.
you will be on the exact path that you're supposed to be, even if sometimes it feels like it's all over the place and you don't even know what's leading to what, but they are
Yeah.
all steps in the right direction.
They are, and one of my taglines within my company is "Let curiosity be your compass," and
Ah,
so you
I
hit
love that.
so well on that because, nobody's necessarily gonna give us a map, and sometimes parents are trying to give their kids the map and tell them where to go. We've got to let them figure it out and learn that internally they can be their own compass. They can trust their intuition. They might step outside of whatever that pathway they thought might look like, but taking those steps and trusting your curiosity, you can be your own compass and figure out this journey. So you put it into words just beautifully. So
I love the maps analogy. And they don't, and I think that's great. Great to get some maps, but just know that no two maps ever look alike.
no.
And so their journey will be their own. They may take little bits from here and there, and that's exactly what mentorship is. A mentor might say, "This is what I did that worked for me," kind of like parenthood, right? You get pregnant, and all of a sudden, everybody wants to give you all this parenting advice, and it's not necessarily aligned with you and your spouse or what you know to be true. You gotta you can listen to it all and take it in and sort of decide what works for you and what doesn't. And what you might want to try and what doesn't really feel right to you. So you're right. Absolutely trust that. Listen to and trust that intuition and that inner voice on what you feel like is right for your journey and how you're going to develop that map.
Absolutely. I love it's a great place for us to come together at the end and to say, the messaging here has been clear with Candace, and thank you for sharing that it's so important